guys, now that it's getting close to spring, we are starting to think about springy things like flowers and colors. So we are going to be inspired by one of my favorite artists, Georgia O'Keeffe. And we're going to learn a little bit about her, and then we are going to make some flowers in her style. So let's get started.
All right, kids, let's get started. So Georgia O'Keeffe was born in 1887.
Georgia.
In a big old farm right up there in Wisconsin. She found beauty in simple things like flowers, mountains, seashells, and animal bones. She loved painting things from nature. She didn't really like painting animals or people. It was more like nature things. And when she painted those things from nature, she would paint them big, bright, close up, and in a simple fashion. Sometimes she would even just paint things that she imagined in her head. Georgia was very good at drawing and artwork, so her parents said, "Hey, you should study and go to school for it." So she went to several schools, and at one New York City art school, she even won a prize. Georgia loved New York City because it was so busy and exciting. She would visit one art gallery very regularly. That gallery was owned by a famous photographer, Alfred Stieglitz. Yeah, sounds good. Years later, Georgia would marry him. After working in New York City, but before marrying Alfred, the guy who owned the art place, Georgia took a teaching job in Texas. She loved Texas too. She loved the clear skies, the heat, the blinding sun, and the amazing storm. Texas inspired her to create some great paintings. Alfred, her future husband, noticed the work she was doing in Texas. He talked Georgia into coming back to New York City. He told her she didn't have to have a regular job like everyone else. She could just come to his studio and paint. It was around this time she started painting flowers, the work she's most admired for, and made her famous. She liked to paint her flowers huge. This was in the 1920s, way long ago, back when there were very few female artists out there. So her work got quickly recognized and everyone loved it. She continued working with Alfred and painting in his gallery. And by the time she was 37, they were married. Years later, Georgia returned to the desert, this time, New Mexico. She ended up spending the rest of her life there, even after her husband Alfred died. Georgia met tons of artists through her lifetime. Not once did she copy any of their artwork or take their designs or anything like that. She didn't even think her own work was that great. And that's what truly makes Georgia O'Keeffe amazing and original and unique. On January 10th, 1977, another long time ago, President Ford, the President of the United States at the time, awarded her with a Presidential Medal of Freedom. That is the highest honor that an American citizen can get. Georgia O'Keeffe lived to be 98 years old. She died on March 6, 1986. That is just 2 years less than 100 years old. She even painted up until a few weeks before she died. Well, on that note, we're all done.
So now that we saw some paintings and flowers by Georgia O'Keeffe, we know that she likes to draw her things big. So we're going to make a big flower on our paper. We're going to start with the shape in the center. I'm going to start with a circle, but if you'd like to put a different shape in the center of your flower, you can do that. I'm using an oil pastel, a black oil pastel. If you don't have oil pastels, a black crayon will work really well too. I also have my watercolor paints, my brush, and my cup with water. Now I'm going to make my flower petals. And my flower petals can be any kind of shape that I want them to be. I'm going to make them big. I want to reach all the way to the edge of the paper. So I'm going to make big curvy lines, and I'm going to go all the way to the edge of the paper. If I go off the paper, that's okay too. I'm just going to come right back on. It's actually pretty fun to go off the paper. Make your flower petals really big. All right, so I'm gonna go around. Move that out of the way. Get my giant flower filled in. Now I'm gonna paint. So remember, with watercolor paints, the key is water, paint, paper, water, paint, paper. Because we gotta get these paints wet. Right now they're dry and they won't work. So I gotta dip my brush in the water, and then I'm gonna dip it in my paints. Sometimes I have to do water, paint, water, paint, paper if I have to get my brush, my paint even a little bit more wet. And then I'm going to fill in this leaf, this flower petal, one color. If I need a little bit more paint, I'm gonna get a little bit more red, and I'm gonna sort of stay in there. Now, if I go over the lines, that's okay, because we know that magic with oil pastel and crayons is that the paint will just go through it and we'll still see my flower petals. But I'm gonna do different colors in each of my leaves. I'm gonna do an orange leaf now. So I'm gonna fill in and water, paint, paper. Now remember, the less water I use, the darker my color will be. So if I want it to be a little darker, I might not put it in the paint, in the water this time. I might just get the color out and see now my orange is darker. And I'm gonna do that flower petal orange. Maybe now I'm gonna do a green flower petal, and I'm just gonna have fun using different colors. You could do your flower petals all the same color if you want, or you can use different colors. You guys can have some fun. You can do patterns and designs if you would like as well. So have some fun with your flowers. Look at some flowers that you might have around your house or in books, and see if you see a flower that you think you like and you might want to try and do that flower. So have some fun. Those of you at home, send me a picture when you guys are done. Oh, and don't be afraid to make a beautiful oops.